Hello, and welcome back to my Q&A video series about the Pandas library in Python. And the question for today comes from a YouTube viewer who asks, is there a simple way to format large numbers with commas when printing or graphing on the axes? Okay, great question. I will answer that. But first, I'm going to answer the more general question, which is how do we change display options in Pandas? Okay, so as always, need an example data set, and so we're going to import Pandas as PD. And the data set for today will be alcohol consumption by country. So drinks equals pd.read CSV. And it's URL bit.ly/drinks by country, okay? And instead of checking out the head, let's just try printing it out, okay? So we'll just type drinks and hit enter, okay? And what you'll see is that it prints out the first 30 rows, then this ellipsis, ... and then the last 30 rows, okay? And it's doing this because it doesn't want to overrun your display. But you'll notice there are only 193 rows, okay? So what if I want to change this and I want to show all of the rows? How do we do that? Well, it turns out that Pandas has display options, and I will show you how to modify those, okay? So first, you need to find the relevant option you want to change. And one easy way to look at the options is to go to the documentation for pandas.get option, okay? So you can Google for this, or there is a link to this page in the description of this video below, okay? So what you want to do is go to get option and then scroll down, and you will see a list of all the available options and their descriptions, and we are going to find display.maxRows, okay? And it tells you it's an int. And it says if max rows is exceeded, switch to truncate view, okay? And none value means unlimited. Okay, so this is the option we want to change, display.maxRows, okay? So what I like to first do before I change an option is look at its current value, okay? So we're going to use the top level function pd.getOption, and then all you do is pass it the name of the option. So display.maxRows. And we see that it is 60, which is why it printed out by default 30 rows at the top and 30 rows at the bottom. So to change that, it's just easiest to edit this, we're going to change it to set option. pd.setOption, we pass it the name of the option and the new value. So I could just say 200, and yes, that would accomplish it. But I think what I'll do instead is to say none, which means to show all rows, okay? And you want to be careful with this because if you have a million rows, this is not going to work very well. But we know that we only have 193, so this will work just fine, okay? So we'll go ahead and print out drinks, and now you will see that I can see every single row. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, and now I can kind of browse the data, okay? All right, now let's say I finished browsing the data, and I no longer want to keep this option. How do I change it? Well, you actually just reset. And again, I will just edit this because it's easiest. So all I will say is reset option, and I pass it the name. And then you can confirm by rerunning this, and you'll see that it's back to displaying the first 30 rows and the last 30 rows, okay? So again, all I did was pd.reset option, passed it the option to reset. Okay. I will note there's another option If you have a lot of columns, let's say, you might have guessed this already, but there's an option called display.maxColumns. And the default for that is 20, okay? Or at least it is on my system. And if you have 25 columns and you want to look at them all, then just change it to the appropriate number, or just change it to none. Okay. So I want to show you 2 more options, then I will get back to Mark's question. Okay. So for my next example, I am going to use a different data set, and it is the training data set from Kaggle's Titanic competition. And so what I'll do is train equals pd.read_csv, and as always it's bit.ly, and then this time it's Kaggle train, and I'll just go ahead and say train.head. Okay, so this is our data set, and the important thing I want to highlight, the first thing, is this ellipsis here, the ... Why is it here? Well, this is a column that contains strings, and there is some sort of maximum it is set about how many characters it will display. Why? Well, again, it just doesn't want to overrun your screen if this is 10,000 characters. But sometimes well, it's actually not that many characters, and I just want to see the data. I don't want you to hide it from me. Okay? So how do we change that? We're going to say pd.getOption, and this is display.maxCallWidth. And that is what's controlling this. It's saying only show the first 50 characters. Okay? So let's change that and see if it works. And we'll change it to set option. And you can't use none in this case, so we're just going to set a large option. We'll just say 1,000. Okay? And then I'll break this into 2 cells, and I'll just display the head again. And now you can see there's no more ... in this cell. Okay, it's going to show all the text actually in all the columns. Okay, up to 1,000 characters. All right. I also want to point out this fair column. This is fair, like dollars, I think, or maybe a different currency. And you might have noticed there's like 4 decimal points, and you might think, I don't really want to see 4 decimal points. I want to see maybe 2 decimal points. So let's change that. We'll say pd.getOption, and this one is display.precision. Okay, and it's 6, which means 6 digits after the decimal point. Now, if we change that to 2 with the set option function, okay, now when we do train.head, it will only display 2 decimal points after. Okay. Now, let me be clear. That did not affect the underlying data. That only affected what is displayed. Okay. All right. Let me finally get back to Mark's question, which is how do we format large numbers so that they have commas when you're printing or graphing? I'm going to use the drinks data frame. So let's show that one again, drinks.head. And we don't have any really large numbers in here, so I'm going to add some columns that are really large. Okay, so I'm going to say drinks bracket X, so I'm just creating a new column called X, and I'm just going to say drinks.wine servings times 1,000. Okay, now I'm just broadcasting this operation of multiplication times an entire series, the wine servings. Now, X is not like a meaningful column. I just need something with large numbers, and I'm going to add one more. I'm going to say drinks bracket Y equals drinks.total times 1,000. Okay, and now let's say drinks.head. Okay, And you can see the two new columns, X and Y. It's just this column and this column times 1,000. And Mark is asking, how do we get like a comma? So that's like 54,000 and 4,900. Okay, how do we get some commas in there? Okay, so the option we're going to use is pd.setOption, and we're going to use display.float format. Okay, and here's the thing we're going to pass it, which may look confusing if you haven't seen these before. In braces, I'm going to put colon, comma, and then after the string, I'm going to put dot format. Okay? So what I've done is I've passed a Python format string, and that format string actually means use commas as the thousands separator. Okay? Now, this is not something that Pandas invented. This is something we're using that exists in Python generally, which is format strings. Okay? So, when we do drinks.head, you will notice we've got 4,900, and you've got the comma, you've got 12,400, etc. But it affected Y and not X. So the question is, why did that happen? And you might have already figured this out by the name of the option, which is float format. Because drinks.dtypes tells us that X was an int and Y is a float. So there is no int format option. There's a float format, and it only affects floating point columns. Okay. So there isn't actually an easy way I know of to get it to affect integers as well. But it is pretty simple for floating point numbers. Okay. The second part of Mark's question was, how do we get this to affect plotting and the axes? Unfortunately, there's no option for that. For that, you will actually have to learn some matplotlib, and there should be a way to get it to do that with matplotlib. Matplotlib is the plotting library that controls the plots that Pandas produces. Okay. All right. As always, we're going to end with a bonus, and in fact, I've got two bonuses for you today. The first bonus is, let's say you're not connected to the internet, or you just don't want to do yet another Google search to the Pandas documentation, but you want to read up on the Pandas options. How can you do that? And I'm going to show you a cool function called pd.describeOption. You run that, and it will display every option, the name of it, the type, the default value, and the current value on your system. Okay? You can scroll through it, and you can see every last option. Pretty cool. And another trick with this one is you can, if you know a particular option you're trying to search, or maybe you remember part of the name, like you search for rows, it will search and only show you the options with rows in the name. Okay, it's not searching this text, it's just searching the names of the options. Okay? All right. Second bonus is, let's say you've changed a bunch of options and you want to reset them without like restarting your kernel or restarting your IDE. There's another trick for that, which is pd.resetOption, and you're thinking like, well, do I have to do it one by one? No, there is a special keyword all, you just pass it as a string, and it will reset all of your options to the defaults. Now, you will get a warning, and that's because some of the options being reset have already been deprecated, but you can safely ignore any warnings here. Okay? So, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please click subscribe. As always, I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment below if you have a comment or a question, and maybe I'll answer your question in a future video. But that's it. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon.